What's the difference? And given that NATO is based in Brussels and that NATO has existed for over 70 years, isn't it rather worrying that a parallel military structure is being created? Well, Sir Gerald Howarth, former Minister for International Security Strategy, and Gerald, you have been watching all of this like a hawk for the last couple of decades. Should we be concerned that it appears Liz Truss has signed us up to this?
Well, I think, Nigel, we need to be clear as to exactly what has been signed up to, because all my inquiries today have failed to produce any evidence as to what it is we have actually signed up to. But you were right in that clip to draw attention to the fact that the leaders of the European project have always intended to create a European army, or what they call an EU defence identity, because, of course, along with the anthem and the parliament and the president, you have to have an army. And that is what they were intent upon doing. And when we were in government, when I was in the Ministry of Defence 10 years ago, William Hague and I managed to prevent the EU from setting up an EU command and control centre to deal with the piracy operations off the coast of East Africa, which is an operation the EU was undertaking whilst NATO undertook Operation Ocean Shield. We persuaded the EU that it was ridiculous there having an operational command and control centre. Why not base it at Northwood, where the Royal Navy was operating from? And we were successful. But of course, everyone was intended to do this. 25 EU members signed up to this permanent structured cooperation in 2017. 5 of them were actually neutral, which of course demonstrates the farcical nature of the whole thing. But surely, in the past 8 months, all of us have seen that the real power, military power in Europe, must be through NATO. That is what is delivering to the Ukrainians at the moment. It is all NATO. Anything like this which threatens to undermine NATO...
Well, this is my point, Gerald. If you set up, whether it's called a command and control centre, or whether, as Joseph Borrell says, these are military capabilities available to the European Union, you are talking about 2 parallel military structures existing within the city of Brussels. It doesn't work, does it?
I don't think so, no. And I think that, of course, it sends a very unclear message to those against whom we are ranged, that we are divided, that we are not of one mind. And I thought what came out of the meeting, what has come out of successive meetings in the last few months, maybe not initially, but certainly in the last few months, is that NATO, and it's fair to say the European Union, but all European countries, apart from perhaps Turkey, which is ambivalent, have been absolutely united in supporting Ukraine and dealing with Putin. But in the political declaration which accompanied the agreement which Boris Johnson, as Prime Minister, signed in 2019, December 2019, in that political declaration there is mention of PESCO, but it is only mentioned in terms of possibly exceptional cases where we might join. And Ben Wallace, Secretary of State for Defence, said in 2020 that he was very concerned about it and had no plans that we would join.
Do you understand why I might be suspicious of Conservative politicians saying, don't worry your poor little heads, it's all going to be OK? Because we've been down this route already with the EEC morphing into the EC and then the EU. I mean, it looks like she signed up to this at Macron's big get-together. You can't find out, despite your influence, any significant details of what has been agreed to. I would put it to you that surely the position of a Prime Minister of Brexit Britain would have been to say to that meeting of the European political community, there are no circumstances in which we would join this. Surely you've all learned that NATO is the right vehicle. And my concern is she didn't do that.
We don't know what she did, Nigel. That is the problem. Whether she signed up to an agreement under the terms of PESCO...
No, hang on, be fair. What we do know is if she'd ruled it out of court, it would have been on the front page of the Financial Times the next morning as a huge row that took place at that meeting. Why didn't she just rule? I mean, would you rule it out?
I wouldn't rule out being engaged on a specific project. I had a word with the current chairman of the ERG, of which, of course, I was a member, Marc Francois, a former Minister of the Armed Forces. And Marc told me today that he thinks that it might be something to do with the movement of heavy armour across Europe, where if we were to move our tanks in support of whatever. We might have to have an agreement. Now, that sort of practical arrangement, I don't think that any of us are going to gainsay. There is no value in that. There is value in practical cooperation. What is of concern is that under PESCO, basically, under their rules, third-party nations who are who are invited to come in on a PESCO operation have no control over the operation. They have no say, and they have to sign up to EU values and to undertake not to contravene EU defence and security interests. We do not know what the Prime Minister has signed up to. We do need to know. I did text one of our defence ministers today, but unfortunately I haven't yet had a reply.
Well, if you get the right answer, Gerald, come back on the programme.
I'll come back and let you know,
Thank
Nigel.
you, please.
But you're right to raise it, and it is important.
Yes.
In the interests of the nation which voted to leave the European Union.
Absolutely.
We do not want to find ourselves gradually creeping back in and undermining Brexit.
And that is